Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to I've Got Something to Say. I'm Chris Whiting. Thank you for joining me. This week's episode is titled Oy Vey. So, yesterday, I went and saw the new movie Black Klansman, and I will say I loved it. Great movie. It was funny. It was thought-provoking. It was really well done. Great acting. Actually did a little Googling afterwards and found out that it was Denzel Washington's son who played Ron Stallworth, the main character, which I didn't know going into it. But who would have thought that kid could act? But he was really good. And it was the first movie that I really liked Adam Driver in, too. So I came out of this movie, A, really enjoying it, but then B, it was so thought-provoking on aspects of racism and inclusion and diversity, and it got me to thinking about our country and how we have evolved from Civil War times to now. And even in my lifetime, I think we have made headway as far as how we accept other races and cultures and people. Certainly we've come a long way from when I was a little kid, but there are all too pertinent reminders that we've got a long way to go, aka Charlottesville and the rise of white nationalism in the form of the alt-right or whatever else. That we've still got a ways to go when it comes to accepting people. And as we were leaving the theater, I started thinking, well, when are times, when I've been tone deaf? Because not only as a country have we evolved, but me as a person, I feel like I've evolved. Like I had blind spots earlier in my life where I didn't even know that I was as prejudiced as I happened to be at the time. And I think I've gotten better, and I think I will continue to get better. Lord, I hope so. But one event that came to mind for me was when I was at Northwest Missouri State. And it was my first year up there, and I had decided that I wanted to be a teacher because I'd been in school my whole life, so why wouldn't I want to spend the rest of my life in school and not try something new? So one of the first classes that I had to take was called Multiculturalism in Education. And this was a class where you learned about different cultures, surprise, surprise, and how to celebrate them, how to relate to the different cultures, and how you could incorporate them so that people would feel included in your classroom. And the way it worked was we went to a few classes, and I should say this was a night class, so it was once a week for like 3.5 hours a night, which is just tough to begin with. And the teacher took like the first 2 classes and just gave an overview of what multiculturalism is and why it's important and why we need to be inclusive. All very good stuff, which I apparently paid no attention to. Because what happened after that was he divided us in teams, and each team had 3 or 4 people, and you were assigned a different ethnic or cultural group, and then the rest of that semester, each team would take one night, 1 3.5-hour session, and you would teach the rest of the class about your particular group. Well, I got my team, and we were assigned the Jewish culture. So it was our job to investigate and research and learn about the Jewish culture and Judaism and how could you include them in classrooms and teaching them and making them feel like a part of the class, celebrating who they are. So we did our research, and then we had a meeting like, okay, what are we going to do? Well, I came up with this really smart idea. And it was, hey, let's do like a Jeopardy game show where we ask questions, or actually we give answers, and then people in the audience have to come up with the question. And I thought this was brilliant, but then I thought, you know what, since we're doing it on Judaism, let's give it a little twist. So instead of calling it Jeopardy, I thought it would be really cool to call it Juperdy. Yeah. So we made signs for Juperdy. And since I came up with the brilliant idea of what to do, I, of course, wanted to be the game show host. So I came up with another brilliant idea. I'll be Alex Trebekstein. So we made a sign for Alex Trebekstein, but then I thought, you know what? I don't know if we're driving the point home enough. So I went and bought what was called a Beagle Puss back in the day. They're like the Groucho Marx glasses, but the glasses with the big fake nose and the mustache and the big eyebrows. So we start the class. I come out. I'm wearing the Beagle Puss. Hey, everybody, I'm Alex Trebekstein, and this is Jeopardy! And we start going through the questions, and I think I'm killing it. I mean, people are laughing. I'm getting some good zingers in there. It's moving along quickly. I'm cutting up. I'm giving some quips. People are getting some of the answers right, and if not, then I explain why it's not right. All good stuff. I will say I did notice that the professor did not have a look on his face that matched how well I thought I was doing. So after about an hour and a half of this, we take a 15-minute break, and then we're going to come back and finish up the class. And he comes over to me, and I'm thinking he's going to be complimenting me on how well I've done. I mean, I'm sure he's never seen an Alex Trebekstein do better than me. And he came up, and he was seething with rage. And he looked at me and said, I can only hope this is a joke. I'm like, yeah? He's like, this is so offensive. This goes completely against the spirit of the class and what we're trying to do here. You are making fun of every stereotype there is about the Jewish culture. Well, I'm not always a quick thinker, but at that moment I was, and I realized, oh, wow, I have really missed the mark on this one. And I said, you know what? I'm so glad you're coming over to ask. I go, that's actually what we had planned, was to come in and to do what people would think are these stereotypical Jewish things. Now what we're going to do the second half is come back and ask the class, okay, where have we done things that could be seen as offensive to Jewish people? And I said, we're going to draw that information out from the class and then just have a discussion about why that would be offensive and what are some things we could do instead. So we completely had to scrap what we were going to do. And I will say, I mean, good for me and our team from a grade point of view, because we actually did get an A on the presentation. Like, I think he bought it. And it was a huge lesson for me because, like I said, I talked about blind spots earlier. I obviously had a huge blind spot about what offensive was to most people. And I think I had this view that, well, if it's funny, then it can't be offensive. I don't think that's always the case. You might have a better shot in a comedy club with that, but when you're talking about educating children, you might want to go more on this, err on the side of not being offensive instead of, ooh, I'm going to try and be funny. So it was a learning experience for me. I think I've evolved since then. I'm a little more aware of when people might be offended and trying to avoid things that would be offensive to them, of trying to be inclusive and accepting of other people. And it was also good for me in a couple of ways. A, I learned, okay, I need to be a little bit more sensitive. And B, educating our youth could get me in a lot of trouble and might not be the career I should go into. So I changed my major. That's it for this episode of I've Got Something to Say. I'm Chris Whiting. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening. As always, if you want to reach out to me, if you have any thoughts, questions, concerns, you can reach me at cwhiting11@gmail.com. Big ups, big thanks, as always, to the good folks at KCTK Radio and my old buddy Paul for making this all happen. This is one of the most fun parts of my life. Wouldn't happen without you. Thank you, and I'll talk to you next week. Bye. Do you want to just come in and go, hey, I think we've got time for a couple of calls? Or
you just say, let's go ahead and go to the calls for some questions.
Okay.
I'm calling you on the air.
All right. All right, looks like we've got time for a phone call. Caller, you're on the air.
Yeah, this is Frank from San Diego. I was wondering, are Jewish people, is that a religion or an ethnic group?
Oh, Frank, great question.
Thank you.
Yes, actually, so yes, there is a Jewish religion, but a there's also the Jewish culture. So it's both. It's very unique in that way, that it's both an ethnicity and also a culture and also a religion.
And I was also wondering, do you think it's still offensive sometimes?
Yes.
Oh, okay. My last question, I really appreciate it. Long-time listener, first-time caller. Is that guy that was laughing behind you, is he anti-Semitic or something?
He's more of an anti-dentite.
Oh, okay. Right.
You can't hang up.
That's it, right?
That's perfect.